Tom Wilson was a loud and proud American tourist visiting London for the first time. The 32-year-old car salesman from Texas had saved money for 2 years to make this trip. He wore a bright Hawaiian shirt, khaki shorts, and a baseball cap that said USA in big red letters. Tom was not the kind of man who liked to blend in. It was a sunny summer day in London. Tom had already visited Big Ben, the London Eye, and had eaten fish and chips twice. Now he was excited to see Buckingham Palace and the famous royal guards. These guards were soldiers who stood very still and wore red coats and tall black furry hats. They were known for not smiling, talking, or moving, no matter what happened around them. "Man, I can't wait to see those funny-looking guards," Tom said to his wife, Lisa, as they walked toward the palace. "I've seen videos of them online. They just stand there like statues." Lisa looked worried. "Tom, please don't do anything stupid. Those are real soldiers, not toys for tourists." Tom laughed and patted the camera hanging around his neck. "I just want some cool pictures, that's all." When they reached Buckingham Palace, Tom was amazed by how big and grand it looked. A large crowd of tourists stood behind rope barriers, taking pictures of a royal guard who stood perfectly still. The guard looked straight ahead, not blinking, not moving a muscle. His red coat was bright in the sun, and his black boots shined. He held his rifle straight up next to his shoulder. "Wow, look at that guy," Tom said loudly. "He looks ridiculous in that giant hat. How can he even see?" Lisa pulled on his arm. "Tom, keep your voice down. Show some respect." But Tom was too excited. He had drunk 3 beers at lunch, and now he felt brave and funny. He pushed through the crowd until he was at the front, right behind the rope barrier. The royal guard stood just 10 feet away. "Hey, buddy," Tom called out. "Can you hear me in there?" "Hello." The guard did not move or respond. His face stayed serious, his eyes fixed ahead. People in the crowd started to stare at Tom. Some looked embarrassed for him. Others took out their phones, hoping to record something interesting. A British woman nearby whispered to her husband, "That American is going to get himself in trouble." Tom turned to the crowd with a big smile. "Watch this, everyone. I bet I can make him laugh." He faced the guard again and made silly faces. He crossed his eyes, stuck out his tongue, and waved his hands by his ears. The guard remained perfectly still. Tom's face turned red. He didn't like being ignored. "Come on, man. Don't be so serious. Life is short." He started dancing around, making chicken noises and flapping his arms. Lisa covered her face with her hands. "I don't know this man," she said to no one in particular. 2 police officers standing nearby watched Tom carefully. They had seen tourists like him before. One officer spoke quietly into his radio. Tom was getting frustrated. No matter what he did, the guard would not react. "Maybe he's a robot," Tom said loudly. "Or maybe he's just not very smart." Some tourists laughed nervously, but most looked uncomfortable. "Last chance to show you're human," Tom called out. Then he had a new idea. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small water bottle. With a big grin, he unscrewed the cap. Lisa saw what he was about to do. "Tom, no," she shouted, but it was too late. Tom raised the water bottle high in the air. The crowd gasped. Some people covered their eyes. Others held up their phones, ready to record what would happen next. "Watch this," Tom shouted. "Let's see if Mr. Serious can stay still when he's wet." Just as Tom started to tip the bottle, a loud, sharp voice cut through the air. "Steepy base cake from D.D. Barrier." The voice was so sudden and powerful that Tom jumped. He dropped the water bottle, which hit the ground and splashed all over his shoes. The royal guard had not moved or spoken. The voice came from another guard who had appeared from around the corner of the palace. This guard walked quickly toward Tom with heavy steps. His face was serious, and his eyes were angry. "Sir, you are in violation of royal protection rules. The second guard said in a firm voice. "Step away from the barrier now." Tom's face turned from red to white. He stumbled backward, bumping into other tourists. "Hey man, I was just having some fun," he said, his voice now small and shaky. The first guard, who Tom had been mocking, remained perfectly still. He did not look at Tom or show any emotion. He simply continued to do his job. Two police officers quickly moved through the crowd. They wore bright yellow vests and serious faces. "Sir, come with us, please," one officer said to Tom. It was not a request. It was an order. Lisa put her hand over her mouth. "Tom, what have you done?" she whispered. The officers guided Tom away from the crowd. Tom looked back at the royal guard, who still stood tall and proud, not moving a muscle. "I didn't actually do anything," Tom complained as the officers led him to a small building near the palace gates. "It was just a joke." "Threatening a member of the Queen's Guard is not a joke, sir," the older officer said. "It is a serious offense." Inside the small building, the officers took Tom's passport and wrote down his information. They explained that mocking and threatening royal guards was against the law. The guards were real soldiers with real guns who had an important job to protect the palace. "You will receive a fine of £500, the officer said. "That's about $650 American dollars. Tom's mouth fell open. "That much? For a little fun?" "The royal guards are not entertainment, sir. They are military personnel on active duty." While Tom was being lectured, a palace security person showed him a tablet. On the screen was a video of Tom dancing and making faces at the guard. The video already had thousands of views online. Someone in the crowd had posted it with the title, "Stupid American Tries to Wet Royal Guard, Gets Instant Karma." Tom's face burned with shame. He was not just in trouble with the police. He was now famous on the internet for all the wrong reasons. When Tom was finally released, he found Lisa waiting outside. She did not look happy. "Are you satisfied now?" she asked. "You've ruined our day, lost a lot of money, and probably ruined our whole trip." Tom hung his head. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I don't know what I was thinking." As they walked away from the palace, Tom felt his phone buzz in his pocket. It was a message from his boss back in Texas. "Just saw you online. Call me immediately." Tom's stomach sank. The video had spread so fast that even people back home had seen it. His foolish behavior would follow him all the way across the ocean. "The internet never forgets," Lisa said, reading the message over his shoulder. "And neither will those guards." Tom looked back at Buckingham Palace one last time. The royal guard still stood at his post, tall and dignified, doing his duty. Tom had thought the guard was the joke, but now he realized the joke was on him. The next morning, Tom woke up with a headache in their small London hotel room. For a moment, he forgot about yesterday's events. Then he saw Lisa sitting by the window with her tablet, and it all came rushing back. "How bad is it?" Tom asked, not really wanting to know the answer. Lisa turned the tablet so he could see. "The video has over 2 million views now. It's on all the big news sites." Tom groaned and pulled the blanket over his head. But hiding wouldn't solve his problems. His phone had been buzzing all night with messages from friends, family, and coworkers who had seen the video. "My boss called while you were sleeping," Lisa said. "He said you made the car dealership look bad. He wants to talk when we get home." Tom felt sick. He had worked at Texas Motors for 8 years. What if he lost his job over this? "Maybe we should just go home early," Tom suggested. "Cut our trip short." Lisa shook her head. "We're not running away. We paid too much for this trip, but from now on you're going to behave like a respectful visitor." Tom nodded, feeling ashamed. "I promise." They tried to enjoy the rest of their day in London, visiting the Tower of London and riding a boat on the Thames River. But everywhere they went, Tom felt like people were staring at him. A few people even pointed and whispered. Once, a group of teenagers came up and asked to take selfies with the Royal Guard guy. That evening, they sat in a small pub for dinner. Tom picked at his food, not feeling hungry. "I really messed up," he said quietly. "I was just trying to be funny. I didn't think about how disrespectful I was being." Lisa reached across the table and took his hand. "I know you're not a bad person, Tom. You just got carried away." A man at the next table turned around. He wore a British military uniform. "Excuse me," the man said. "Are you the American from the video at Buckingham Palace?" Tom wanted to disappear. "Yes, that's me," he admitted. To his surprise, the man smiled kindly. "I was a royal guard for 2 years," he said. "It's not an easy job. We stand for hours without moving, in all weather. People don't realize how much training and discipline it takes." Tom nodded, feeling even worse. "I never thought about that." "The guards are protecting the Queen and royal family," the man continued. "It's an honor and a serious duty." "I understand that now," Tom said. "I wish I could apologize to that guard." The man thought for a moment. "You know, you could write a letter of apology to the regiment. They might appreciate it." The next day, Tom sat down and wrote a sincere apology letter. He explained that he now understood the importance and dignity of the Royal Guards. He apologized for his disrespect, not just to the individual guard, but to the entire British military and the royal tradition. Tom and Lisa mailed the letter before leaving for the airport. On the long flight home, Tom thought about how one foolish moment had changed so much. When they landed in Texas, Tom's phone buzzed with an email notification. It was from his boss. "Come to my office first thing tomorrow. We need to discuss your future with the company." Tom showed Lisa the message. "Whatever happens," he said, "I've learned my lesson. Actions have consequences, and respect matters." As they drove home from the airport, Tom saw that someone had taped a picture of a royal guard to their front door, with the words "No jokes allowed" written underneath. It seemed his neighbors had seen the video too. The instant karma from mocking the royal guard wasn't just the fine or the public shame. It was the hard lesson Tom had to learn about respect, dignity, and thinking before acting. Some lessons come at a high price, but they last a lifetime. The next morning, Tom put on his best suit and drove to Texas Motors. His hands shook as he parked his car. The building looked the same as always, but today it felt like walking into a courtroom. "Everyone is watching the video in the break room," the receptionist whispered as Tom walked by. Her words made his stomach hurt even more. Tom knocked on his boss's door. Mr. Johnson was a tall man with gray hair who had run the car dealership for 20 years. He didn't smile when Tom came in. "Sit down, Tom," Mr. Johnson said, pointing to a chair. Tom sat and waited for the bad news. He was sure he would be fired. "That was quite a show you put on in London," Mr. Johnson said, tapping his computer screen. The video of Tom mocking the royal guard was paused on the screen. "I'm really sorry, sir," Tom said. "It was a stupid mistake." Mr. Johnson nodded slowly. "Yes, it was. Very stupid. And now our dealership name is all over the internet because you were wearing your Texas Motors hat in the video." Tom hadn't even realized he was wearing his work hat that day. This was even worse than he thought. "I don't know what to say," Tom admitted. "I should fire you," Mr. Johnson said plainly. "But I've known you for 8 years. You're a good salesman when you're not acting like a fool." Tom held his breath, waiting. "So I'm not firing you," Mr. Johnson continued. "But you're on probation for 3 months, and you're going to help fix this mess." Tom could hardly believe his ears. "Thank you, sir. I'll do anything." Mr. Johnson smiled for the first time. "Good, because I have an idea. The video made our company look bad, but we can turn this around." The idea was simple but clever. Tom would make a new video for the dealership's website. In it, he would tell his story and apologize for his behavior. He would talk about how he learned about respect and good manners when visiting other countries. The video would end with the slogan, "At Texas Motors, we respect everyone, even royal guards." It's honest, it's funny, and it shows we can admit mistakes, Mr. Johnson explained. "People will respect that." Tom spent the next week making the video with the marketing team. It wasn't easy to talk about his embarrassing moment, but he knew it was the right thing to do. When the video went online, something surprising happened. People loved it. Comments poured in from viewers who appreciated Tom's honesty. Even some British people wrote to say they forgave him. A reporter from the local TV news came to interview Tom about his journey from international embarrassment to redemption. Tom felt strange being on TV, but he told his story honestly. "I was disrespectful to someone who deserved respect," he said in the interview. "I'm lucky that I only got a fine and some public shame. The guard was just doing his job, and I made it harder." 2 weeks after Tom returned from London, a letter arrived at his home. It had a British stamp and an official-looking seal. Tom opened it carefully, his hand still shaking a little. The letter was from the captain of the Queen's Guard. It was short but meaningful. "Mr. Wilson, we have received your letter of apology. The Royal Guards are trained to handle all situations with dignity, as you witnessed firsthand. Your recognition of their professionalism is appreciated. We consider this matter closed and wish you well." Tom showed the letter to Lisa, who had stood by him through the whole ordeal. "I think this chapter of our lives is finally over," she said with a smile. Tom nodded and carefully put the letter away. He would keep it forever as a reminder that respect is always the right choice, no matter where you are in the world. 6 months after the London incident, Tom's life had changed in ways he never expected. The apology video had done more than save his job. It had made him a local celebrity. People would come to Texas Motors asking specifically for the Royal Guard guy. Tom's sales numbers were better than ever. One rainy Tuesday morning, Tom arrived at work to find Mr. Johnson waiting for him with a strange smile. "You've got a visitor," Mr. Johnson said, pointing to a man sitting in the waiting area. The man stood up when he saw Tom. He wore normal clothes, jeans, and a button-up shirt, but something about how straight he stood made Tom think of a soldier. "Mr. Wilson," the man said with a British accent, "my name is James Harrison." Tom shook his hand, confused. "Nice to meet you. Do you need to buy a car?" James smiled. "No, I'm just visiting Texas. I wanted to meet you in person." "Do I know you?" Tom asked. "In a way," James said. "I was the Royal Guard you tried to pour water on at Buckingham Palace." Tom's face turned pale, then red. His mouth opened, but no words came out. The Royal Guard, the actual man he had mocked, was standing right in front of him in Texas. Why are you here?" Tom finally managed to ask. James explained that he had finished his time with the Royal Guards and was now traveling through America. When he saw Tom's apology video online, he decided to make a small detour to meet him. "I want to buy you lunch," James said. "I think we have some things to talk about." At a nearby diner, Tom could hardly eat. He kept apologizing over and over. James listened patiently. "I've wanted to ask you something," Tom finally said. "How did you stay so still when I was being so annoying? I would have punched me." James laughed. "Royal Guards train for months to ignore distractions. I've had people scream in my face, make horrible jokes, even try to kiss me. Your water bottle trick wasn't even close to the worst." "Still, I was disrespectful," Tom said. "Yes, you were," James agreed. "But your apology was sincere. That's rare." They talked for hours. James told Tom about life as a Royal Guard. The long hours standing perfectly still, the heavy uniforms that were hot in summer and freezing in winter, and the pride of protecting the Queen. Tom realized how little he had understood about the man behind the uniform. Before they said goodbye, James handed Tom a small box. Inside was a Royal Guard pin, a small red soldier on a black base. "This is for people who have served," James explained. "You haven't served as a guard, of course, but you've served as an example of how to admit when you're wrong. That takes courage, too." Tom was speechless. He carefully pinned it to his jacket. When Tom got home that night, he told Lisa everything. She couldn't believe the Royal Guard had come all the way to Texas. Maybe this whole thing was meant to happen, she said. Look at all the good that came from it. Tom thought about how his mistake had led to a new friendship, better sales at work, and most importantly, a better understanding of respect. Sometimes karma wasn't just about punishment. It was about learning. A week later, a package arrived from the UK. Inside was a framed photo of James in his full Royal Guard uniform, standing tall and serious outside Buckingham Palace. He had signed it, to Tom, a reminder that behind every uniform is a real person. Thank you for learning that lesson and teaching it to others. Tom hung the picture in his office at the car dealership. Customers often asked about it, and Tom would tell them the whole story, not leaving out any of his mistakes. The story always ended the same way. Respect isn't just something you say. It's something you learn, sometimes the hard way. 1 year after the London incident, Tom received a surprising email. It was from a school teacher in Dallas who had shown Tom's apology video to her students. She wanted to know if Tom would come speak to her class about respect and owning up to mistakes. Tom was nervous. He had never spoken to a group of kids before, but Lisa encouraged him. Your story might help these children learn without making the same mistakes, she said. So Tom agreed. On the day of his visit, he walked into a classroom full of 30 curious fifth graders. Their teacher, Mrs. Parker, introduced him as someone who learned an important lesson about respect. Tom told his story simply, showing pictures from his London trip and the now famous video. The children giggled when they saw Tom making faces at the Royal Guard. I thought I was being funny, Tom explained, but I was really being disrespectful. That guard was doing an important job, and I made it harder. A small boy in the front row raised his hand. Did you get in big trouble? Yes, Tom nodded. I had to pay a fine, and I almost lost my job. But the worst part was knowing I had been rude to someone who didn't deserve it. Tom showed them the picture from James, the Royal Guard. The kids were amazed that the guard had come all the way to Texas. The hardest thing I have ever done was admit I was wrong, Tom told them. But it was also the most important. After his talk, many students came up to thank him. One girl said she would remember his story the next time she visited another country. A boy admitted he sometimes made fun of his sister and would try to be more respectful. Mrs. Parker was so happy with Tom's visit that she told other teachers about him. Soon, Tom was invited to speak at other schools. He never charged money for these talks. He felt it was his way of turning his mistake into something good. Mr. Johnson, Tom's boss, was proud of what Tom was doing in the community. He gave Tom time off work to visit schools. The dealership even made small Royal Guard toys to give to the children after Tom's talks. The toys had a message attached. Stand tall, stand proud, stand respectful. Tom's stories spread beyond Texas. A children's book author heard about him and wrote a picture book called The Guard and the Joker. The book taught kids about respecting other cultures and saying sorry when you make mistakes. Tom was surprised to see himself as a cartoon character, but he was happy that his story was helping children. Even Tom's family noticed changes in him. Before the London trip, Tom had been loud and sometimes thoughtless. Now he listened more and thought before he spoke. He was still fun and liked to joke, but he was careful not to hurt people's feelings. You're a better person now, Lisa told him one night. All because I was a worse person first, Tom replied with a smile. On the 1-year anniversary of his meeting with James, Tom sent an email update to the former Royal Guard. He attached pictures of his school visits and the children's book. James replied the next day, "Who would have thought that your water bottle and my stiff upper lip would lead to all this? Sometimes the best teachers are our own mistakes." Tom printed this message and put it next to James's picture in his office. Every time he looked at it, he remembered how one moment of disrespect had turned into a lifetime of learning about respect. The karma that had hit him so hard that day in London had actually been a gift, though it had taken him a while to see it that way. 2 years after the London incident, Tom received a special invitation in the mail. It had a royal seal and fancy writing. Tom and Lisa read it together at their kitchen table. "Dear Mr. Wilson, The letter began. You are invited to attend the International Respect Forum in London this summer. Your story of learning and growth has touched many people. We would be honored if you would share your experience with our guests. The letter was signed by an important British official who worked with cultural relations between countries. There was also a handwritten note at the bottom. James Harrison suggested your name for this event. We hope you can attend. London again, Lisa said with wide eyes. Are you ready to go back? Tom thought about it. The idea of returning to London made his stomach feel tight. What if people there still remembered him as that rude American? But then he thought about all the good that had come from his mistake, and he knew he had to go. I need to face it, Tom said. Plus, it would be nice to see James again. 3 months later, Tom and Lisa were on a plane to London. This time, Tom wore a simple blue shirt instead of his loud Hawaiian shirt from the first trip. He had learned that sometimes it was good to blend in. The forum was held in a big fancy building near Buckingham Palace. People from many countries were there to talk about respect between cultures. Tom felt small and nervous among all these important people. When it was Tom's turn to speak, he walked to the front of the room. His hands were shaking, but his voice was clear. 2 years ago, I stood outside Buckingham Palace and did something very disrespectful, Tom began. I thought I was being funny. I was wrong. He told his story honestly, not leaving out any of his bad behavior. He explained how the guard had remained strong and professional while he had been foolish. He talked about the fine, the shame, and most importantly, what he had learned. Respect isn't just about following rules, Tom said. It's about seeing the humanity in everyone, even if they're wearing a uniform and can't respond to you. When Tom finished speaking, the room was quiet for a moment. Then people started to clap. The applause grew louder and louder until everyone was standing. After his talk, many people came to shake Tom's hand. Some were military officers from different countries who thanked him for highlighting the importance of respecting soldiers. Others were teachers who had used his story in their classrooms. The best moment came when an older man in a special uniform approached Tom. The man had many medals on his chest and walked very straight. Mr. Wilson, the man said with a deep voice, I am General Clark, Commander of the Queen's Guard. Your story has become part of our training program. Tom couldn't believe it. Your training program? How? We show your video to new guards, the general explained. It helps them understand what they might face and how to stay professional. Your story teaches both sides of respect. That evening, Tom and Lisa met James for dinner. They sat at a nice restaurant with a view of Buckingham Palace in the distance. Did you ever imagine we would be here like this? James asked. When you were making faces at me 2 years ago. Tom laughed and shook his head. Never. I thought you were just a man in a funny hat. Now I know better. James raised his glass. To respect, he said. Sometimes it's hard to learn, but always worth it. As they enjoyed their meal, Tom looked out at Buckingham Palace glowing in the evening light. The place that had once been the scene of his biggest mistake was now a reminder of how far he had come. 3 years after the London incident, Tom sat in his living room watching TV with Lisa. A news story came on about the Queen's birthday celebration in London. The camera showed royal guards standing tall in their red coats and black furry hats. Remember when you thought those guys were just funny-looking statues? Lisa teased, nudging Tom with her elbow. Tom smiled. Hard to believe that was me. The doorbell rang. Tom wasn't expecting anyone. He opened the door to find a delivery man holding a large package. Delivery from London for Mr. Wilson, the man said. Tom signed for the package, confused. He hadn't ordered anything from London. Inside the box was a smaller wooden box with a royal seal on top. Tom opened it carefully. Inside was a small model of a royal guard, about 1 foot tall. It was beautifully made with a perfect red coat and a tiny black bearskin hat. A note was attached. To Tom Wilson, honorary friend of the Queen's Guard. In recognition of your work promoting respect between cultures, This is one of only 50 models made each year for special friends of the regiment. The note was signed by General Clark and had the official stamp of the Queen's Guard. Tom set the model carefully on his mantle. "I went from almost getting arrested by these guys to being their special friend," he said, shaking his head in wonder. The next day at work, Mr. Johnson called Tom into his office. Tom had been promoted to sales manager the year before, partly because of how well he connected with customers by sharing his story. "I have a special assignment for you," Mr. Johnson said. "The company is opening a new dealership in London." Tom's mouth fell open. "London? As in London, England?" Mr. Johnson nodded. "We need someone to go there for 6 months to train the new staff. Someone who understands both American business and British culture." "And you want me?" Tom could hardly believe it. "Who better? You're practically a British celebrity now." Mr. Johnson laughed. "Plus, you already have a friend there." That night, Tom and Lisa talked late into the night about this new opportunity. Moving to London for 6 months would be a big change, but it also felt like the next step in their journey. "It's like the universe is giving us a do-over," Lisa said. "A chance to experience London the right way." 3 months later, Tom and Lisa moved into a small apartment in London. On their first free day, Tom did something he had been thinking about for a long time. He went back to Buckingham Palace. This time, he stood quietly behind the barrier with other tourists. He watched a young royal guard standing perfectly still. Some tourists were taking pictures, and one young man was trying to make the guard smile by making silly faces. Tom walked over to the young man. "Can I give you some advice?" he said kindly. "These guards are real soldiers doing an important job. They deserve our respect." The young man looked embarrassed. "I didn't think about it that way." "Thanks, man." As Tom walked away, he felt someone watching him. He turned to see James standing nearby in normal clothes. His old friend had come to witness this moment. "Full circle," James said, shaking Tom's hand. "From troublemaker to teacher." They walked together through the palace grounds, talking like old friends. Tom thought about how one moment of disrespect had changed his entire life. If he hadn't mocked that royal guard years ago, he wouldn't be living in London now. He wouldn't have found his calling teaching others about respect. He wouldn't have made such meaningful friendships. Sometimes, Tom said to James, karma doesn't just hit hard. It hits exactly where you need it. 5 years after the London incident, Tom and Lisa were back in Texas. Their 6 months in London had turned into a full year, and they had loved every minute of it. Now they were home, but their lives were very different. Tom had left the car dealership to start his own business. He called it Guard Respect, a company that taught people how to travel respectfully in other countries. Schools, businesses, and travel groups hired Tom to teach their people about cultural respect before they went abroad. On a warm Saturday morning, Tom stood in his office looking at his wall of memories. There was the picture of James in his Royal Guard uniform. Next to it was the model guard he had received as a gift. There were photos from his time living in London, and newspaper articles about his unusual story. The doorbell rang. Tom opened it to find a delivery man with a large envelope. "Special delivery from Buckingham Palace," the man said. Tom's heart beat faster. Mail from Buckingham Palace was always exciting. He opened the envelope carefully. Inside was a formal invitation. The paper was thick and cream-colored with gold writing. It read, "Mr. and Mrs. Wilson are cordially invited to attend the royal reception for cultural ambassadors at Buckingham Palace." Tom read it 3 times to make sure it was real. A reception at Buckingham Palace, where he had once made such a fool of himself. He called James right away. James was now in charge of special events for the Royal Guard. "Is this for real?" Tom asked. "We're invited to the palace." "Very real," James confirmed. "The Queen started this annual event to honor people who build bridges between cultures. Your name was at the top of our list." 1 month later, Tom and Lisa were dressed in their finest clothes, walking through the gates of Buckingham Palace. This time, They weren't standing outside with the tourists. They were honored guests. Inside the palace was more beautiful than Tom had imagined. Gold decorations, red carpets, paintings, and statues filled the rooms. Important people from around the world chatted in small groups. James met them at the door, wearing his formal uniform with all his medals. "Welcome to the palace," he said with a smile. "A bit different from your last visit, I think." As they walked through the grand halls, James explained the evening's events. There will be a reception, then dinner, then the Queen will present medals to 3 special guests. "Who are the special guests?" Lisa asked. James smiled mysteriously. "You'll see." During the reception, Tom met diplomats, actors, and even a few princes and princesses. He told his story many times, always ending with what he had learned about respect. At dinner, Tom and Lisa sat at a table with people from 6 different countries. They ate fancy food on plates with the royal seal. After dinner, a royal official stepped forward. Her Majesty will now present the Medal of Cultural Bridge Building to 3 recipients. The first medal went to a famous musician who had brought different cultures together through music. The second went to a teacher who had started a worldwide student exchange program. Our final recipient, the official announced, is Mr. Thomas Wilson from Texas, United States. Tom froze. He wasn't supposed to get a medal. James had never mentioned this. In a daze, Tom walked forward. He bowed as he had been taught and accepted the medal. It was heavy and gold with a blue ribbon. "Thank you for teaching us that sometimes our mistakes can become our greatest lessons," the Queen said quietly to him. Later that night, back in their hotel room, Tom looked at his medal in disbelief. Lisa took a picture of him holding it. "From water bottle to royal medal in 5 years," she said, laughing. "That's quite a journey." Tom nodded, still amazed. "All because I made the worst mistake of my life." The next day, as they flew home to Texas, Tom thought about his journey. One moment of disrespect had started a chain of events that changed everything. The karma that hit hard that day wasn't punishment. It was the beginning of something better.